sim racers from around the globe, honoring a revolutionary era of open-wheel racing. With a beast not easily tamed, roaring around legendary circuits at breakneck speed. When engineers and drivers push boundaries, sometimes too far. When heroes muscled a roaring beast wheel to wheel around the hallowed ground. A time when the only driver aids were his 2 feet, the perfect combination of man, machine, and speed. Experience the competition and the glory of early 80s IndyCar action. The Lionheart Retro Series presented by Next Level Racing starts now. They say there is no rest for the weary. Fresh off a battle on the streets of Long Beach, the Lotus 79s make the trip across the ocean to the land of the rising sun. It's time for one final battle before we head to the Brickyard to settle the second Triple Crown of the season. Welcome to Motegi and welcome to the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175 presented by Butt Kicker. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV and coverage of the 2023 Lionheart Retro Series. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX, visit hyperx.com. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, delighted to be joined alongside in the RaceSpot commentary booth once again by the one and only Andrew Kinsella. Don't forget that you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/timing throughout the course of the rest of the race. Without further ado, let's dive straight into towards our Butt Kicker pre-race show because boy, Phil Krause and Sean Campbell know how to put on a show, and 7 days ago it was a Royal Rumble in the streets of Long Beach. Phil Krause back on top and back into HyperX victory lane. But today at a track where we're going to be expecting the 3, the 4, the potentially 5 wide as we take a look at our Next Level Racing schedule. Andrew, we're in for a blockbuster of a race to start a crazy month of June.
Oh boy, Arjuna, you sure brought me back into the commentary booth for a good one here today at Motegi. Man, this place is known for action with this car. That's so wide, it's so smooth. We are going to see 3, 4, even 5 wide, as you say. I can't wait to see what's going on here. But look at that schedule also that we have coming up here in the month of June. After we get done with Motegi here today, 2 back-to-back races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. First, the Indy Road on June 22nd. Then the big one, Indianapolis, on June 29th. That one's going to be very special. And I think all the drivers here today, they'll have an eye on the race here today, and of course the carnage that's expected, but they've got that one eye looking forward to the end of the month here.
I can't wait for that. I'm glad that I'll actually be here. We both missed out on Long Beach, but both DJ Clark and Ewan O'Leary decided that we get to enjoy Motegi. I'm not complaining too much about that in that expanded 22 race Next Level Racing schedule. Quick rundown of the driver standings because yes, even though Phil Krause has now entered HyperX victory lane twice this season, it is still Sean Campbell with the consistency that is leading, but it's close between him, Matt Taylor, Michael O'Brien. Very early doors, drop rounds yet to be really factored in. Reality is, Andrew, when we talk about this Drivers' Championship, yes, Sean Campbell is the expected championship leader, but he's been kept quite honest, and these ovals mean anyone can come back into play.
Absolutely, Arjuna. Like, you look at the names trailing Campbell right now with Taylor, O'Brien, Rasmus, all were a factor in last year's championship battle right down to the wire, and they're keeping him honest, as you say. And then Phil Krause, he's had a little bit of bad luck, a little bit of his own making and not of his own making so far this season, but he's still very much in that. Even David Sirois in 6th place is still not out of this. Ricky Harden and Tyler Graff are also looking strong this year, so we've got a really stacked field here, and as you say, it's still early on in the season and it is wide open here.
I can't wait to see halfway through how it's going to look. I think we'll get a much more representative sense of things there. But I don't think we're too surprised that our effective defending team champions in this HyperX team standings, Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, lead by now almost 140 plus points. Nezumi Graphics LC make it a 1-2, yes, but it's close between them. Raven Lavoie, unacceptable racing and backfire. The carnage that sometimes we see in races like this, Andrew, means that it's hard for teammates to work together, but with a group like that at the front, you expect them to find a way.
Yeah, you do, and teamwork is very important when you get the opportunity because, as you say, that can change very, very quickly here. So a team like Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, they know how to work together. They know how to sort of maybe spread out across the track a little bit if they can get all of their cars right to the front of the field. So it can work, but at the same time, as you say, it's really difficult to make it work over the long haul because we've got 113 laps here, and it's going to be very difficult to be at the front of this field for all of them.
The good news is the next few races are those races where teamwork's going to play less of a factor for those maybe further back in the championship, but today I think that's going to be a major, major talking point. Rookie championship, well, Sean Campbell leads in the overall. He leads in the rookie, of course, as well, but team talent, Phil Kraus, Dan Zagers, second and third. 1 point, though, split Zagers and Fontaine, who, after Zagers got on the podium to start the season off, Fontaine's been that solid mark of consistency to bring himself back into that podium battle. It's a strong rookie class overall, though, and the likes of Andrew Wood, Kite Bombers back, and even Bruno Miranda really yet to show us their best.
Yeah, there are a number of drivers that I'm expecting will start to pick up the pace here as the season starts to wind on and start to factor into this championship more. But, I mean, what can you say about Sean Campbell's performance so far other than Phil Kraus is starting to feel, I think, a little bit of pressure. We know how good a driver Phil Kraus is in the Lionheart series, but Sean Campbell, so far, that consistency that you mentioned earlier when we were discussing the full standings, it's just really been killing Phil Kraus's chances so far, and he's got to find some of that consistency if he wants to contend.
He's doing what Phil Kraus did in the Lionheart Open Wheel Series last year at the end of the day when he finished on the podium throughout the course of a calendar year, effectively. Here's a look at your Lionheart Retro Series details presented by Gomez Sim Industries as we head into Season 7 with this Lotus 79. It's Year 10, of course, of the Lionheart Racing Series. We're all fighting with a custom fix setup built by Major's Garage, with the cash and prizes totting up to $3,600. Our Triple Crown, of course, one in the book, still one yet to come later this month, then the final one in 2024 to wind up our championship as we see if Mike Grasmas can defend his crown or if he'll be dethroned. Meanwhile, Madworks Motorsports, as mentioned, now under the Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks Motorsports banner, still leading in that team championship. Much like we've seen from the private label Team Hype on occasion in that Lionheart Open Wheel Series. Let's talk, though, about our arena event details, because I think this is I don't know if you say much anticipated, if maybe much feared, trip outside of the US for the very first time this season. It's a race where, yes, starting up front is a good mark. First, second, and third have all headed off to HyperX victory lane, but it's no guarantee, especially since we finished under caution in the previous, in 3 of the previous 5 occasions. But boy, we do know we can be in for a craziness. 34 lead changes across a Season 5 and Season 6. Although, let's not talk too much about Season 5 when we finish with just 7 drivers on the lead lap, Andrew.
Yes, it has been a little bit of a chaotic event lately since we've gotten onto this newer oval tire model with the Lotus 79. But as you can see, 34 lead changes both of the last 2 years. Starting up front, not a guarantee that you're going to finish there by any stretch of the imagination. We are going to have a lot of lead changes. We're going to have slicing and dicing. We probably won't have too much fuel strategy simply because they can make it comfortably on 2 stops. But if a caution comes at the right point in time, we might start to see some fuel strategy work its way in there as well. So I think this race is going to have a little bit of everything here today.
You know, that crazy thing is the margin of victory, closest margin of victory at this track, just under 1/10 of a second. You'd think that'd be pretty up there in terms of closest series finishes. That's only 27. That's the mark of some of the wild stuff that we've seen in the past. Closest margin of victory, by the way, 0.002 of a second, that back at Michigan. Quick look from up above at what is no longer the Twin Ring Motegi circuit, renamed to Mobility Resort Motegi, as much as it was struggle to stick in my mind. It's an interesting one. At either end, very, very different. 1 and 2, a little bit more wide open in terms of how much on the throttle you're going to be. 3 and 4, you're sometimes onto the brakes. Andrew, from a driver's perspective in this car, what does that mean?
It's really a difficult place to get a rhythm in, particularly when it's so much traffic and so hard to just settle into a run, because you don't know corner to corner necessarily what you're going to have. If the tire starts to fall off a little bit, you can start to get loose, especially through 3 and 4. There's a lot of driving that needs to happen to navigate this track. It looks simple, but it's anything but when you get in this car and you have 30 odd drivers around you all going very fast around this track. It's a difficult track to master, but those who can love it.
And the crazy thing is, then we're going to pile, 31 cars entered into this qualifying session that has literally just gotten underway. Perfect timing for us to wrap up the pre-race festivities, head into some on-track action, because qualifying here, I said maybe not the most important, but starting inside of the top 10 in every single race that we've seen previously here at this track has ended up being at least a relatively good sign. I'm always curious what weather conditions end up looking like when we go racing here at Motegi, and so as the drivers head out for warm-up laps, let's take a look at those weather conditions. Interestingly, I think for the first time in a while, Andrew, we're not racing in the morning. We've gone off to the afternoon with some scorching track temperatures.
Yeah, look at those track temp, 42 degrees for your surface temp. That's really, really hot. And it's going to result in some tire wear over the course of this run. It's 2:12 in the afternoon right now in sim time. So that means that we're basically at the hottest point of the day right now. So it is going to cool down just a little bit as we get towards the end of the run, and the end of the race, but not a lot, particularly with all of these drivers creating a whole bunch of heat on this surface.
And so as we get the first time on the board, let's see where the benchmark will lie. It's a 33.379, first time by for David Sirah, who does hold the qualifying track record a year ago with a 31.350. So interesting to see the discrepancy on the opening lap. Rodrigo Munoz is into the 31.6s, but it seems like lap number 2 where the faster drivers are going to elect to put their focus. Let's see where Sirah will bench himself. And
you can see he's keeping it nice and small on the movements, going right out to the outside wall here on the run here. 31.348. That's a really good lap from David Sirah.
And it's a new track record by David Sirah. I've always wanted to say those words. It's only fitting that just heading out of the month of May that we get to say that as well. 2 thousandths quicker. David Sirah once again on top, and it's going to be Raven Lavoie Motorsports 1 and 2, at least for the time being. Let's see if anyone else is going to be able to pit them. Again, lap number 2 where we seem to see the fastest laps, and it's going to be Valiokas that will be next up to head to the line, a driver that's headed to victory lane already, of course. Where is he going to put himself? It's only a 7.52. We'll slide him up to 7th.
And you can see that just how much driving really does make a difference around here. You have to pick your line absolutely precisely, and you have to be very good at getting through those turn 3 and 4, especially with as small of movements as possible. You can't afford to let the car wiggle. You can't afford to let the car scrub speed on the way out, on the track out. It's really difficult to nail the lap, and Sirah just did an outstanding job. Michael O'Brien, though, he came close, didn't quite get it, though.
So as O'Brien, Grass 2nd and 3rd, Campbell 5th. Again, it's looking good for Nezumi Graphics LC. Phil Krause up to 11th on his opening lap. Going to be interested to see where that fares out on lap number 2 for him. Still with 21 times on the board, there is enough time for a couple more drivers to finish up their laps and throw themselves onto the board, but potentially some electing to try and stay at the back and stay out of harm's way. For Phil Krause, it's a 4.83. It's up to 6th. He'll be on the outside of row number 3.
Yeah, probably not quite the lap that Krause was hoping for. I think he would have been hoping maybe closer to the time of Graf in 3rd place there. Looking at Andrew Wood coming across the line here. He's only got a 31.7, so he's back with the likes of Hassert and some of the slower drivers, unfortunately, for Wood. Or was that just his first lap?
No, I think that was actually his second. I was confused for a bit as well, but yes, that was his second attempt in the qualifying session. It will be Paul Jenkins that we see next up, running his way to the line in the Elite West Racing car. Finds 3/10. It's up to 13th for him. Hopefully not unlucky 13th for Paul Jenkins.
Yeah, Jenkins, he's a really solid driver. He just needs to sort of, as you say, get rid of some of the bad luck that he's had and just put together a complete race is one of the hurdles that I've found watching Jenkins. Is he'll be solid for a large portion of the race, and then suddenly he'll make a small mistake and it'll cost him, and it sort of snowballs. But if he can get rid of that tendency, I think that he can definitely be a factor here today. Craig Forsyth, meanwhile, 31.649. Not in the top 10 yet for Forsyth, I don't believe.
And as Hugo Gallus jumps his way into 26, we'll run out of time to actually set a second qualifying lap. It means that David Siwa once again will find his way to pole position. What an exciting qualifying session that was, with Siwa breaking his own benchmark in qualifying. But as we get ready to rumble in the land of the rising sun here at Twin Ring. See, I did it there, Andrew. I told you I was going to do it a couple of times at some point. As we get ready to go at Mobility Resort Motegi, we're ready to rumble. Let's run you down through today's starting grid. And so David Siwa, for the 9th time in his 41 races, will start from pole position. He does have Michael O'Brien in a rather yellow machine alongside Tyler Graf, Alex Guyon. Round out your front two rows. It's Raven Lavoie, Zumic Graphics LC, all to play at the front. Sean Campbell, then our championship leader, lines up alongside Phil Kraus just a week after the two tangoed on the streets of Long Beach. Behind them in row 4, it's Mark Cohn in that Graphics LC Nazumi Special Mustard Menace machine. Lines up alongside Chris Fowler, hopefully not cursed here today. It's Christopher Hill, Sam Fontaine to complete your top 10. Luis Gonzalez Nunez and then Luke Daniels on row number 6. Hopefully not unlucky 13th, as mentioned, for Paul Jenkins in the Elite West Racing number 35, because he's got his teammate for company at the start, Chris Reagan 14th, while Drew White in 15th lines up alongside Big Joe Hassert in the pair of Graphics LC Nazumi Special entries. Craig Forsyth and then Rodrigo Munoz 17th and 18th see themselves just inside of the top 20, where Christopher and Marius Valiokas bookend themselves. It's George Anzaldo, the series organizer, inside of Jim Herrick in 21st and 22nd, while Andrew Wood has some work to do from 23rd to try and find his teammate Phil Kraus at the front, Cristobal Valenzuela on his outside. Back in 25th, it's Matt Wagner, just 2 more cars with times on the board. It's Hugo Gallus and then Ricky Harden. Mike Razmath and Jeff Hysong have plenty of work to do as they roll their way from the back of the field. I believe, though, we did have a couple more cars getting ready to roll. And as far as I'm aware, expect to see the likes of Chris Lanini and Mike Rigney heading out there as well. The drivers already getting stacked up and ready to roll on pit lane, and so as we get a look at them getting ready to head their way out onto track, it's time to run you down, as always, through today's featured onboard cameras, starting with the number 4 machine of Phil Kraus. His team talent car rides with Butt Kicker. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. Next up, it's Michael O'Brien on the outside of the front row. He carries with him Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Visit gomezsimindustries.com. Series organizer George Anzaldo is back in 21st. He carries with him Arena, a new streaming experience for esports is coming. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. Brief moment before we go racing, Andrew, and boy, am I excited, but there are those nerves in the air as well. What are you expecting as 133 laps get thrown up onto the board?
I think that we're probably going to see about 2 laps of calm, and then the storm is about to erupt here. I think that the draft is going to play a huge part in according this field up, and we are very quickly going to see 3 and 4 wide here.
I think that's going to be the name of the game. Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart, and with the pace car off and away for the 9th time in his career, David Siwa brings us to the green. We're racing for the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175.
There was a slow car in the middle of the field there, Arjuna. Someone didn't go on the start.
We stay green for the time being, though, as we head through turn 1 and 2. Sirwa still in front with Tyler Groff second, Michael O'Brien third, and Sean Campbell, Chris Fowler already working their way up inside on the top 5. But in towards turn number 3, maybe onto the brakes for the first time. Everyone seemingly through safely.
They're all behaving themselves nicely, but that was a little bit of a chaotic start, especially as they tried to avoid the slow car in the middle of the track there. But look at them already starting to spread out over the wide surface of the Motegi Oval here. I think that we're going to see, again, maybe about one more lap before we start seeing the 3 and 4 wide coming up here. They're just going to use the draft and accordion all the way back up.
One of those races where we're not going to get too excited about passes for the lead, because the reality is, as much as leading laps is good, it's not so important. And as those cars bounce off the wall, they all check themselves up. I think we get through safely. We're more worried about the 2, the 3, the 4 wide moments that will build and how close drivers elect to run themselves. Nervy moment on lap number 1, nervy moment at the end of lap number 2.
Absolutely, and it was Alex Guillon was the car from your 4th position. He fell all the way down to 22nd position, Arjun. A massive drop on that opening lap.
We'll take a look at the replay in a few moments' time, but finally getting single file just a little bit more at the front of the field. You can see now, end of lap number 3, drivers realizing 133 laps with a fuel window, Andrew, potentially upwards of 40.
Exactly, so fuel shouldn't be an issue depending on if we go green. If we get a yellow at the wrong time, they could become a fuel mileage race, but for right now, we are safely in a 2-stop pit window, and everybody should be able to get home comfortably with that.
Almost 3 wide there, as I think that's Mark Cohn that's worked his way up inside of the top 4. Let's take a look at that start and jump on board here with Alex Guillon. You can just hear that throttle momentarily hesitating from there. I'm not sure if he missed the gear as well, but it was a major struggle for him.
It almost looked like he shifted up into 4th instead of 2nd there, Arjuna, and he just couldn't get it back into the right gear, and he just got swallowed up by the pack, and they did a really good job to avoid hitting him in the back there, because it can get really surprising when you're following another car and suddenly you see a slow car in the middle of the track. Absolutely.
I've been there before. I've also been on the other side of that, as many will know. Listen to it one more time.
He just couldn't shift.
That sounds more like a hardware failure. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, he just couldn't get it out of gear. It was almost like his clutch failed or something along those lines, and he couldn't get it out of gear. As we see, cars getting very close to the wall coming off of turn 4 there. One other thing to note from that, Matt Taylor, for anyone who is paying attention for our championship, he actually joined the race just as qualifying was ending, so he started right from the back, and he is still at the back. I think he's just content to ride and let the chaos of these opening laps subside a little bit.
I do wonder for someone like Matt Taylor if he's come into this with maybe limited preparation as well, and so electing to start the race and rather join the race late and then not want to insert himself into trouble, going to ride and try and understand what the car is doing, and that's not necessarily the worst thing for someone like Matt Taylor, who we've seen on occasion has been able to work their way forward from the back on occasion. Now, I've been trying to avoid talking about cautions because you know what they say, cautions breed cautions, and there is such a thing as the commentator's curse. We've never had fewer than 4 cautions. That, though, was last year with just the 4 cautions. Somewhat optimistic, given that that was a relatively recent experience, but once again 3 wide for almost 12th position. I'm not sure the drivers have got the memo.
It looks like about half of them have got the memo, and half of them are really trying to go forward in a hurry here, which often is the worst case scenario because it creates drivers doing a lot of different things and driving very differently out there. And when you're driving very differently from the cars around you in a pack is when miscommunications happen. So we're in a little bit of a tense stage right now, but I will say so far it has been so good.
I'm getting nervous right now because what was it, around this time 2 years ago in terms of race distance, that we had the big one, and I am knocking on the wood all around me. I am hoping that I'm not cursing us to go 4 wide once again. Chris Stouffer trying to insert himself up inside of the top 10. The good news about racing like this is it means that someone like Stouffer, who can be pretty good at making moves forwards, can dice up and forward. 8 positions already gained as he tries to get alongside Phil Kraus for 10th position.
Yeah, this is one of those races where if you're a comfortable oval driver, you can really excel, as we see the driver get really high there. So just as we were talking about Christopher, Sean Campbell, Campbell got really wide through turn 3 there, but yeah, the more comfortable you are as an oval driver and understanding where you are on the track, this is really a type of race where you can excel at it, and you just have to have that sort of understanding of what's going on in the race and being able to read the body language of the other cars around you. There's nothing that can replace the experience of driving one of these cars in this scenario like that. So definitely, if you're a rookie, this is going to be probably a little bit of a longer day for you.
Yeah, well, this is one of those days where you end up sweating and you're simmering afterwards. That's without a shadow of a doubt. Of note, Sam Ryman dropping back from the pack, but very much still everyone for themselves. And it looked like for a moment maybe Michael O'Brien got a little bit loose out of turn number 4 and immediately railroaded back to 4th, but he tries to fight alongside with David Sirois. Checked up the pack momentarily, but all that does is set the Hornets' nest off once again.
And that's something that I do want to keep an eye on as this run goes on, which of the cars are starting to get maybe a little bit loose, especially coming off of 4. It's a very tricky exit here. The track almost falls away a little bit on that exit, and it can, especially in the Indy cars, hook your car almost straight into that interior wall there, the inside wall. And it doesn't happen as much with the Lotus 79s, but it still can happen, and if it happens in front of the field, it can be disastrous.
That's a harrowing shot if I've ever seen one. Craig Forsyth trying to pinch himself down on Christopher as they fan out 3 abreast out of turn number in towards turn number 3, excuse me. But again, knock on wood, they are keeping it clean almost halfway through a fuel run. Now, only one driver has ever won this race twice. That was Matt Taylor. Sean Campbell has the opportunity to join him, as does Big Joe Hassert, who is down in 18th position. Of those that have led the most laps, though, Sage Karam, 61, never won here. George Inzaldo, 41, unfortunately never won here. David Rodriguez, 33, never won here. Again, it's just that mark. You can lead all you want, like Mark Cohen's doing right now. It doesn't mean much if you don't lead at the end of lap 113.
And in a scenario like this where you can't break away, I almost prefer to be in that sort of 3rd, 4th, 5th place because you can save some fuel, particularly with the big lift that you have to do into turn 3 to get safely around. You can actually save a fair bit of fuel and set yourself up for a little bit of a shorter run at the finish, and maybe even with a little bit of an overcut as well. So I think that despite there not being a tight fuel number here, I think we will see a little bit of fuel strategy being played by some of these drivers.
Fuel mileage always comes into play in some ways. It was interesting for me being over at Speedway Indiana for this past weekend, listening to the drivers on the radio when they got short-fueled by their engineers, just how irritated some of them got when they had to hit a certain fuel number. Because they all wanted to run as close to the front as possible. Michael O'Brien has gone from starting on the outside of the front row to now being almost outside of the top 10 because the outside line is not really where you want to be, and he's struggling to find a way to cut down a little bit lower. Just look at him searching up high for some speed.
Yeah, he's trying to get a little bit of clean air to get the car to turn just that little bit more, and he's just keeping up the momentum. There's almost a certain point where if you get past about 10th or 12th, you almost are better off dropping back and just letting the chaos go in that way. So that could also be a little bit of strategy for him. He might also be going back to play with his teammate there, Matt Taylor, at the back of the field. So there's a number of different things to consider with what he's doing, as we see 4 wide through turns 1 and 2 there for a minute.
I don't think you have a bad idea, but this is just uncomfortable to watch him trying to get back to that position. He is in 18th, and so don't think he's far away from finally being able to link up potentially with his teammate. And again, remember, Nizumi Graphics Mad worked in a very good spot in that team championship. End of lap number 19. You can see those team logos and affiliations. It's not just Nezumi Graphics LC this time at the front. You still have Raven Lavoie because Alex Guyon has brought himself back up into 9th. 4D Racewear represented by Fontaine, Stouffer, as well as Forsyth. This is where those teamwork and the coordination become so important.
Absolutely it does. And the Nezumi duo at the front is about to be broken up by Sean Campbell. He wants to go to the front. Meanwhile, there is another driver who's dropped all the way back. Tyler Graff, your third place starter, he's all the way back in 23rd, right in around the same area as Michael O'Brien. So there's a lot of games being played, both by people wanting to move forward and by people wanting to move back.
I'm just trying to figure out, is there any undercut or overcut? Is there a significant difference here at Motegi as to which one you would probably prefer as a driver, as I think we're about to almost go 3 wide for the lead. Sean Campbell's having none of this though. Mark Cohn wants to block him down low, just fends off the challenge for now.
Oh, that was so close. Campbell got his nose right under the rear tires of Mark Cohn there. There was inches between them through turns 1 and 2 there. To answer your question though, Arjuna, I would say that there should be a fairly significant overcut at the end of this stint where you're going to be faster on the low fuel because these tires don't really fall off in terms of time. If anything, they tend to gain a little bit of time towards the end of a stint. So if you can save some fuel, go a few laps longer, you should be able to have a pretty significant overcut. So that would be my strategy going into this.
It was Chris Fowler. Yes, it was almost up into the wall, but very much trying to drop back. So I think Nezumi Graphics LC trying to work together with an overcut potentially at the forefront of their mind, but also maybe just not wanting any part of this. Don't think that Sean Campbell's going to be close enough to get to the inside of Mark Cohn, where he really wants to challenge for the lead, but it's all about setting up through the draft. Gets a great run through 1 and now out of 2, almost alongside, but almost too early. Where is he going to go now?
He's going to try the outside here and try to keep Mark Cohn pinched down a little bit. Oh, he does the switchback, tries the inside into turn 3, but Mark Cohn still just too strong, shuts the door there.
I think for the time being, Cohn is not really in the mindset to give up this lead. Fontaine's going to have to watch out though as well, because as much as he's down low, look at David Seward pinching him potentially as well, with the likes of Forsyth behind. It's still racy at the front, and maybe I think this is an important factor to think about with tire temperatures coming into factor. That is definitely 4 wide for a moment, almost looked like 5 wide.
Yeah, there's a little bit of urgency coming in and a lot of comers and goers right now. And it's starting to get a little bit intense, and you also notice there is a cloud starting to come over just a little bit on the speedway here, so that's going to factor into their temperature calculations as well. So a lot of moving parts here for these drivers to be thinking about. We've got a number of drivers who have worked their way up through the field, not just Fontaine, but also Craig Forsyth is up from 17th to 6th. Stouffer's from 19th to 7th, and Jim Herrick is inside your top 10, 22nd all the way up to 8th. So Mike Rasmus is in 10th from 28th on the grid. There
was a big moment for Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and once again, away we go, 3-4 wide, all across the shop. Oh. Chris Reagan almost gets squeezed in. To think that was Jim Herrick trying to run himself down low, just that little bit too much, but boy, if you weren't nervous at the start of lap number 1, you better be nervous now. It's not just side-by-side at the front, it's side-by-side all the way through the field.
Yeah, you can tell the balance has sort of changed on the cars a little bit, and some of the drivers are starting to get nervous. They really want to get more towards the front. A whole bunch of other drivers noticed the balance change and just went to the back and sort of let this chaos happen, and hoping to avoid the wreck when it happens here. We're down almost 3 degrees Celsius since the start of this race in terms of track temperature, and that's mostly because of this cloud that's come over the speedway here. So we've got a lot of moving parts here as we're coming in probably about 10 laps away from some green flag pit stops here.
Hey, credit where credit's due. We've gone green flag running for 28 now complete laps.
Yeah, it's been some really spectacular racing, especially back further in the pack. we've gotten a little bit strung out here at the front, and I think that a few drivers have scared themselves just a little bit.
There's Sean Campbell down low, and finally Mark Cohen's grip on the bottom line has been broken. It's not going to be his grip on the lead relinquished though, because he holds on and now snakes his way to the line. Oh, Sean Campbell still trying to find his way to the front and increasingly getting his way closer.
And notice how Cohn did not allow Sean Campbell to get back to the inside there. I think Cohn is fairly comfortable in taking that middle line through 3 and 4, but through 1 and 2, he definitely wants to be on the bottom.
I'm still nervous, if you can't tell. Although, as much as I was just singing their praises, instantly I got nervous once again. End of lap 30 means maybe 10 laps, but like Andrew points out, these cars rocket ships on low fuel. It's why we so often see drivers thinking that the fuel save is the game, and so who's done it the best so far? Phil Krause still runs himself in 12th position, and he tries to win his 3rd race this season, reinsert himself into the championship mix. I think I'd rather be where Phil Krause is, potentially, than where Sean Campbell is right now. No?
For me, Krause is in a little bit of a hornet's nest here. There's a few drivers doing a few things that would make me nervous, so I don't know. I'd almost rather, at this point in the race, be all the way back sort of where Fowler or Wagner is. As long as you're in the draft train right now, I think that almost anything can happen at this point.
Jacob Oster jumps into our YouTube chat with potentially the worst joke in all of human history, but one that Team i5G still persists with. So if you are watching along, by the way, tell us who you think's going to win this race, because if you get it right, you should also go and maybe we don't speculate, but go throw $5 on a lottery ticket, because this is one of those races that is so wild and unpredictable.
Yeah, we honestly I have no idea what's going to happen as Sean Campbell goes around the outside of Mark Cohen, and he might just have the speed to get around him here. Cohen's sticking to the bottom, but that's the first time that Campbell was really able to get alongside him all the way down that back straightaway, so I don't think it's going to be too much longer before Campbell finds a way around that 39 car.
And I think everyone's got the sense now why we finished under caution in 3 of the previous 5 races that we've had at this facility. But with green flag pit stops underway, one thing that we should know, Andrew, is pit entry here. Sean Campbell tries to find his way potentially towards that pit entry, because as far as I'm aware, you're not entering pit lane directly off of turn number 4. Drivers have to commit on the entry to turn number 3.
Yes, I believe that is the rule here for the Lionheart. I think it's just too crazy to have these drivers dropping in the middle of turn 3 and 4 like we sometimes see with the Indy cars do around here. So I do believe that they have to commit at the entrance to turn 3.
Probably for the wisest, and we'll see how that's going to shape up. Once again, Campbell a little bit in front in towards turns 3 and 4, but Cohen's going to slide his way up through the corner and hold on once again. But what does Mark Cohen call his machine? It was the Mustard Madness, or Mustard Menace, one of the two. He's going to be heading down to pit lane sooner rather than later. Look at these movers and shakers, though. Forsyth, Stouffer, Valiokas, plus 14, plus 15. It does mean, though, that they're going to be probably heading down to the pit lane sooner rather than later than those that are slidden back to the back.
It's one of those things where you want to get your way forward, especially if you didn't qualify necessarily too well, but you can't afford to use too much fuel, as we've got a lead change here, Arjuna.
But only momentarily, because Mark Cohen all the way to the wall says, no thank you, I want to hold on to this lead. I do believe at the line, though, Sean Campbell was scored in front.
Yes, he was. So that is the first lap led there for your defending race winner, Sean Campbell. Meanwhile, we do have our first driver down pit lane. It is Ricky Harden in the number 7 car. So you should see him be going a lap down here. But he has officially opened this fuel window.
There is Ricky Harden heading down that pit lane. Still have the Sean Campbell charge to try and work his way up to the lead, but Mark Cohen is having none of it. We were told that lap 39 was probably the expected entry into the pit stop window. Now we have, though, a WMP Racing duo at the front that potentially can try and peel Mark Cohn away from his preferred line. It does come at the end of the run though. Valiokus all the way up high.
And look at the run he gets simply by going in a straight line instead of snaking all the way down the track. There is something to be said about not scrubbing any speed in this car, because these cars don't necessarily have the same power that the IR-18 does.
Oh no!
Into the wall and into the
It was
traffic.
Sean Campbell and Valiokus, and Cohn that came together. Valiokus bounces back. I'm not sure who else got a piece of the action. Valiokus the only one taking an immediate trip down to pit lane. But just as we were getting ready for green flag pit stops, Valiokus heads down to the box.
And that's such a shame for Valiokus. He had done such a good job getting himself through the traffic and trying to fight with the leader, but I think that was just a little bit of inexperience from Valiokus. It was a move that we had seen from Campbell and Cohn multiple times here, but Valiokus gets a tremendous run through turn 2, tries to draft down the back straightaway, and then Cohn starts to move up just a little bit, but Valiokus then just turns in here. There's a little bit of air in between the cars, but I think that was just a little bit of an early turn in from Valiokus.
It's not Chris Stouffer that got hit, so I believe it was Sam Fontaine that got the big bonk, unfortunately. And we'll see if we can jump on board with his car. You'll see him just working his way to the outside, and not sure how much time the 22 really had to react. Fortunately, the iRacing gods have smiled on the 4D Racewear SRT Black car.
Yeah, that was a very lucky bounce there for Fontaine. It looks like he's escaped any damage just by the grace of the iRacing gods, as you say. So I think that Valiokus somehow is the only driver that's really been affected there.
It was unfortunately only his car, and now we'll see a race off of pit lane. Who's going to be the best here? Rolling first, I think, is going to be Sean Campbell, who will beat Mark Cohn to your race lead. Stouffer, Forsyth, then Kraus, the rest of your top 5, while Fontaine, Guyon, Nunez, Hill, Sirah, the rest of the top 10. That was almost a 3-wide moment there as they rolled their way away from the lane. But now, is Mark Cohn going to be peeled away from the race lead?
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think Cohn is going to want to definitely try and get the lead back. He seems the most comfortable in the race lead. So the other thing to consider here, Arjuna, is that on our first start, we had obviously the double file start. This is going to be your first single file start. So you're going to have a little bit more spread out than I think we've ever been at any point in the race so far on this restart. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when it truly accordions back up.
True. Now I'm going to get nervous again. They did so well, and then just as I was getting ready for what should have been an exciting green flag pit stop cycle, we're not going to see it. Ricky Harden, you can see just in front of your race leaders, is going to be cycled back around to the tail end of the lap. Chris Reagan's going to head back down to pit lane. Not sure if this is necessarily something that is strategy related, but again, it goes to wonder as he goes up on the jacks and gets at least one set of tires on the car. What all these drivers are thinking about, what they want heading into this next phase of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. This is sort of this sort of affords a lot of these drivers the ability to reset their brains a little bit, analyze what happened during that initial run there, and just try and figure out what they're going to do for the rest of this race. Because I think some of the drivers, like your Chris Fowlers and your Michael O'Briens, taking that trip to the back here, I think that you're going to see them start to work themselves back up through this field very quickly here, because really they've got 2 stints now to get back to the front and get back into contention. And I don't think that they thought that this would go as green as it has so far.
You get the sense that they probably expected Valiokus to bounce back into the running traffic and cause a much bigger incident?
Quite possibly, yes.
I'm not saying I don't disagree with you there, but Guyon's going to head his way back down to pit lane. I'm not sure if there is necessarily something to be said for giving up a spot inside of the top 10, given what you were just saying about Michael O'Brien having to work his way back through the field. Although he's not the only car that comes on in. Hugo Gallus, Luke Daniels, Tyler Graf. There's a handful who have elected that they don't want to wait to come back down to the lane.
And I mean, keep in mind with Guyon, he has already worked his way through the field once after that atrocious luck that he had on the initial start of this race. So we know that Guyon can do it. Actually, though, something has happened with Guyon because he is disconnected now.
Was that a hardware failure that then snowballed into something more? We'll see if we can get word. Everyone else has headed off from the lane from what I can see. Gallus, Hardin, Graf, Daniels do roll back out with the lights off, so we'll get back to go racing. Sean Campbell, as ever, not focused just on what's happening on track, has decided to jump into the YouTube chat, and I'll quote, "I got beef, he was blocking me like crazy." Sean Campbell is not happy right now.
No, but from my point of view, I didn't see anything too especially egregious there, so I'm going to disagree with Campbell a little bit. Like, yes, he's probably not happy about it, but it's part of racing at Motegi.
And interestingly, Sean Campbell has decided that he wants to wait all the way down low as the green flag flies once again in the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175, presented by Butt Kicker, in towards the opening corner. We will dice with a new race leader who is going to probably give Mark Cohn a very similar treatment. We'll see how it plays out here. Battle starting to build side by side, but not yet inside of your top three.
A really strong start here. Cohn looking to work that outside line, but Campbell having none of it. He drifts up in the middle of the corner, forcing Cohn to check up here. And meanwhile, look at that number 4 car in P4 here. Phil Kraus has entered the top 5.
It's been a very steady day for Kraus. Did qualify decently, but opening stint mired in the midst of the top 10, and top 15 rather. See how he's going to elect to play this one. Once again, Cohn's going to pop himself up high and try and work his way to your race lead. Look how close that they got. Open door for Kraus to maybe slide his way on through as well. 3 wide off the corner, almost playing ping pong for the lead. And as much as they're fighting up front, separation starting to build to those behind.
Oh, and there is contact between Campbell and Cohn there coming into turn 1. I think Campbell got a little bit preoccupied with returning the favor to Mark Cohn there, and that's allowed Phil Kraus to really get into the battle here and potentially take the lead. Not exactly what Campbell was looking for there.
There is plenty of fighting going on. Look at this, 3 wide down below in what is a Duke for, I believe, 15th or so spot, where you've got Chris Fowler leading them in towards turn number 1. Still almost 3 abreast for your race lead, but this is that charge you were mentioning, Andrew, from those that dropped to the back that now need to claw their way back into contention.
Well, and the issue for Fowler right now is he's almost a second behind Joe Hassert, so he's very much in danger of losing the lead draft right now, so they can't afford to fight too much. It's lucky that he's got Michael O'Brien right behind him who will also understand the situation here, but this group of drivers right now very much needs to get back onto the back of the leading pack quickly.
Can see how much, though, that this wide track enables this sort of racing. Track temperature's only going to drop from here. All machines are left on the lead lap, by the way. Guyon as well as Valiokas, 2 retirees on the day so far. Fowler, I do wonder almost, is this a case where swap drafting will help Fowler and O'Brien to maybe close that gap? Last time by, they didn't really end up closing. They gave up, if anything, half a tenth.
Yeah, I don't know how much swap drafting will really help them. I think that the main thing is just sort of running the best line that you can and then hoping that you get a bigger sniff of the draft here pretty soon. Meanwhile, back at the front of the race, I think Sean Campbell sent the message to Mark Cohn, but Mark Cohn sent the message right back. He's back in front of this field, and he has muscled Sean Campbell out of the way. Phil Kraus sitting back in third now.
I do wonder if Sean Campbell has just decided, you know what, again, okay, I'll save fuel, and we'll see how this plays out at the very end of the race. Only 4 cautions last year, 5 cautions the year before, but 7 and 8, those are your previous numbers in terms of where to align your expectations. Still about a second splits Hassert and Fowler, 14th and 15th positions already. Now almost 10 laps separated from these drivers, having worked their way down on towards the pit lane, and not far away, Andrew, from the halfway mark in this Majors Garage Twin Ring 175.
And that halfway mark is definitely a psychological marker for a lot of these drivers who dropped back early on in the race. They need to find a way to get back into that leading pack, and if they don't do it by halfway, I think that they're going to start getting a little bit more desperate here. So this is where that uncomfortable part of the race happens. If you're not where you want to be right now, it's got to happen fairly quickly. I will say that last lap, Joe Hassert dropped back just a little bit, and I think it's allowed Fowler to regain his draft. He's only about 0.6 of a second back.
He did indeed, and so now going to latch his way back into leading contention. How is it going to play out? Alex Guillaume, by the way, does confirm it was a hardware failure, unfortunately. Jump on board with a handful of drivers and work our way through the field. First up, it's our defending champion, Mike Razmas. 23 positions gained as he sees David Sirois sail around the outside of Phil Kraus. Been a really impressive drive so far from the number one.
It's drives like this that made him the champion last year. It's turning lemons into lemonade for Mike Rasmus here today. He did not set a qualifying time, and it can go one of two ways when that happens. You can either get out very quickly, or you can work your way forward, and Mike Rasmus has definitely opted for the latter, but he's definitely still in the danger area here as Craig Forsyth is working him over pretty good for that 5th position.
I love watching the hands, because 2 hands, 2 feet, that's all you get in these machines. And now Ansaldo and Forsyth squeezing one another through turns 1 and 2. It is advantage to Ansaldo, who is up his own 15 positions so far this race, and probably a good opportunity for us to talk about our arena driver profile, with George Ansaldo running up inside of the top 6, a track where he's led 41 laps before, 103 starts for our series organizer, but a driver that unfortunately has not always had the most luck. 3 pole positions, but only 4 top 5s to show for it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but as you say, this is really a track that George has always excelled at. We know he's up there on the all-time lap leaderboard here, and he's just very, very comfortable here. He likes the wide surface, but also the draft aspect of it. Two aspects of the track that really suit his driving style, and it's really showing here today as he's comfortably in the top 6 now.
Now Josh Chin trying to get smart with me, saying, did he miss the part where other cars allowed for more than 2 arms and 2 legs? Yes, but there's no driver aids in these cars, Josh. So thank you for your contribution, as ever. We'll see Josh Chin back in action for the Buckkicker Sports Car Series, which will return to RaceSpotTV this month after a couple of weeks away. Josh Chin in our GT3 class, GT3 Pro class to be specific, in what's been a rather intriguing multi-class affair. Once again, you can join myself, Arjuna Kankipati, along with Andrew Kinsella for all of that action. Here's Ansaldo, though, still working his way through. He's now gotten past David Sirra, who has dropped his way back to 6th. It's one of those races where you can come and you can go. And right now, I'm not sure if everyone necessarily, again, wants to be at the front, working our way almost to halfway through a fuel run.
But I do think that there's something to be said for keeping in contact here, and there's a little bit of urgency. If you look at Fowler and O'Brien, there is some urgency in trying to find a way through the field. Tyler Graff is another one who's started to go. He went all the way to the back. Now he's back up to 13th here. So some of these drivers are just that little bit more desperate. I would want to be within the 2-second mark of the leader at any point in time throughout the rest of this race. So if you're hovering right around that 2-second mark, that starts to put a little bit of urgency in me if I were piloting one of these cars here today.
It's one of those races where that battle box, unfortunately, can only show you so many cars, and so the story of the race is much more visual than anything else. Luis Gonzalez Nunez in that white and yellow Team SimRace 24/7 car is up high, has been passed by Tyler Graff, now potentially going to be passed by Chris Fowler, but Graff in that 98 immediately back down the inside of Chris Hill in that number 31 machine. juking and moving their way on forward, but you can see the snaking back and forth at the front while they're having to fight their way hard at the back of the field. Sean Campbell's downloading this data on Mark Cohen and saying, okay, if he's going to do all of these moves now on lap 111, on lap 112, and on that final lap on the race, what do I need to do to get to the front? These are all those test runs for Campbell to figure it out.
Absolutely. This is what Campbell needs to do, is just study his opponents. As George Anzaldo gets very close to the wall coming out of 4 there. Yeah, he's definitely got to study, figure out how to get a run here. I think that getting this separation is actually pretty important for the final lap of the race, because then you can really put the hammer down through 1 and 2, use the draft, and truly get alongside into 3 and 4 here. That's going to be the type of move that Campbell's going to have to make. The question is, will he be able to pull that off when there's only 1 or 2 to go here?
I guess the other question is, for a 3rd year in a row, are we going to finish under caution? Because that would put a bit of a damper on the situation, given what a interesting race it's been so far. I thought for a moment there that potentially Razmas dipped his tires below the white line, and Zaldo definitely did there on the back straightaway. Fortunately not midway through the corner, but he slingshots his way past the number 1 car, so maybe there was a little bit of a bobble from Razmas, and Zaldo needs no second invitation to 4th as he tries to add to his lap sled count here at See, I keep wanting to say Twin Ring Motegi, Andrew. It's really a switch.
I think you should just succumb to the temptation, Arjuna.
No, because I've been watching, because YouTube is wonderful. I've actually been watching a fair amount of Japanese motorsports. It's a lot of fun a lot of the time. Mobility Resort. It's not that hard. That's what I need to tell myself.
Technically, it is still called Twin Ring Motegi in the sim.
So hashtag play my racing is what you're trying to say.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay. Clearly not my fault. I'll see. Final round of the Porsche Esports Super Cup this weekend. Let's see how much trouble I can get in by reminding them, you know, guys, you haven't updated that yet. I'll do it during my sound check, and it will drive.
We have a plan.
The poor guys behind the scenes at iRacing have no idea what's about to hit them. If you have any other things that you want to direct iRacing's way, as long as they are totally not important, throw them into the YouTube chat, and I will see how much trouble I can get myself in. We're on to lap 65, which does mean we are well past the halfway mark of the race. Chris Fowler has worked his way up into 11th spot. Crucially, though, within 1.7 seconds of your race leader.
And that's definitely a little bit more comfortable for Fowler. Tyler Graff has worked himself all the way up into 8th as well. So all of the MadWorks drivers right now, they're marching their way forward, the Graphics LC boys. So you can definitely tell that the urgency is definitely coming into play here.
Again, look at those team logos, because now that Sean Campbell has seen Marius Valiokis back in pit lane, it leaves just him from the WMP Racing crew to fight. You do have a couple of the Lavoie Motorsports machines, although Alex Guyon, after his hardware failure, of course, no longer in contention. It's just Anzaldo and Cyril left to work together. And then while, yes, you have Phil Kraus, it is mostly Nozumi Graphics LC cars before you get to those 340 Racewear cars once again. So with only probably 15 laps to go until we once again head off down on towards pit lane and hopefully, knock on wood, for green flag pit stops.
Whoa.
Right on cue. Can you say that was a commentator's curse?
I'm going to call out a commentator's curse, because you definitely cursed Sean Campbell there, and hopefully he got away without any front wing damage, because I am 100% convinced that he hit the back of George Anzaldo's car there.
Look at the front wing. It looks fine. No commentator's curse, clearly.
That's as close to a commentator's curse as we've ever gotten without it actually being one. We'll say that.
Well, I tell you what. Replay will tell us everything. That's the motto that I always have. Now, I don't know if there's contact from that replay, but I tell you what, if there wasn't, you can't really put more than a pixel or two between the two of them.
And that was all car control from both Campbell and Kraus to not have a huge incident there. because the underrated part there was Phil Kraus checking up and not getting into the back of both of those drivers in front of him there too. That was very, very close to disaster.
I tell you what, I think we should probably take one more look at that, because it's the closest to disaster that we've been in quite a while. And remember the 7, that doesn't relate to the number of cautions that we had at Motegi 2 years ago. That relates to the number of cars that finished on the lead lap. Moments of that almost.
Fortunately, we were that close to having a big incident, but that's as close as we've gotten so far. Meanwhile, this pack of about 20 drivers here has really started to pull away from the second pack. It's actually 19 drivers in this leading pack, and then you can see 2 distinct packs forming once again. And Mike Rigney, Matt Wagner, and Joe Hassert are among the significant drivers in that second group that is...
Oh, caution's going to fly. And once again, we slow things down. Car up on its lid. And it's Matt Taylor that does get mixed up in this. Paul Jenkins as well. Unlucky 13, it does seem, for the Elite West Racing car.
Yes, and Taylor had worked his way all the way from the back of the grid, 33rd, all the way up into 16th the lap before that. And I think it was just the two of them coming together in the middle of turn 1. Oh, it was Luis Gonzalez Nunez, I think, got into the back of someone there. I think that might have been
Andrew Wood is just in front of them, and so as Matt Taylor comes through the corner, he's definitely not the villain here. Did Wood have a failure on his own?
It almost looked like he pulled down, whatever happened, he pulled down onto the apron there.
That's all by himself.
Yeah, and then in avoidance, Jenkins goes up the track, and Taylor was an innocent bystander, completely innocent there. So heartbreaking for Matt Taylor, who had worked his way all the way through half the field there, but his journey ends now.
So 31 laps into the run, surely everyone comes down pit lane this time by. It does mean that we are done with pit stops from here to the end, unfortunately, Andrew.
We are, but it is right on the edge of the window, so I wonder how much you really want to be leading this stint, Arjuna.
Good point. Although, it's 41 to go. If you're putting a full tank in, you should be just about fine. Now, Anzaldo is so far back that we're going to be watching for quite a while to see who's going to be winning this race off of pit lane. There are still cars heading in towards their stalls. Sean Campbell's in the mix, but it is going to be, I believe, Mark Cohn that wins the race off of pit lane. Cohn second, Anzaldo third, Kraus fourth, and then Razmas behind them. We're in for an interesting fight from this point forward, Andrew, because I think you're not wrong about fuel, but only the drivers will really know.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to be nervous for the drivers at the front, because I think they'll want to stay in that leading pack, that top 5 area, but you can't be using up too much fuel at the front. Meanwhile, look at who's really close to the front of this field now, all the way caught back up. Tyler Graff, Chris Fowler worked their way all the way firmly into the top 10. I believe they're going to come out about 6th or 7th here on this restart.
7th and 8th, I think, is exactly where they will cycle, although we'll never know until we actually get restarted once again. Joshua Chin jumping in to say that Wood have held it straight to avoid, I think it would have been Sam Ryman, and then cranked it in. We'll see if we can get another look on board with Andrew Wood from his perspective, but fortunately he survived. Paul Jenkins, Matt Taylor not so lucky. It's a long way to go this season, but for Matt Taylor, after getting so close a couple of years ago, tied on points, heading out of the final race of the season, it was on countback that Aaron Morgan won the championship. Might be another year unlucky for the MadWorks Motorsports driver. Here's a look at that replay, if I can find all the right buttons here. Oh, he got mighty loose there, didn't he?
Yeah, so the car in front of Wood got a little bit loose. checked up just a bit, went to the outside, suddenly got all of the downforce and all of the clean air on his front wing, and he already had a whole ton of wheel in it. And as soon as that thing caught, it went straight onto the apron, and then everything else was just avoiding action, and especially from Jenkins, and unfortunately Matt Taylor just completely innocent there.
So with lights still left on the pace car, we have 40 to go. That will become, I guess, 38 to go when we go racing once again. One more caution guarantees will be good to the end in terms of fuel, but there's no guarantees of anything. Mark Cohn's been wanting to lead so far. You're still questioning if he's going to be good on fuel, I guess, Andrew.
I think he probably will be fine. I don't think it'd be a long stretch to get him to be fine. I just think that it's one of those things where if you're in the top 3 or 4, you have to be cognizant of, and you have to be watching, and it just takes a little bit of your attention away from the actual battle itself.
Not a unfair point, and there's always the risk that you put too little fuel in the car in pit lane. No, I've definitely never made that mistake. Never.
Never.
Absolutely never. Prediction time, Andrew. I mean, it could be anyone. What did your dice land on? Which number?
I have landed on the number 4, the driver who is in P4, driving the number 4 car, Phil Krause.
Okay, well, I'm running out of time to do this. This is a trick that I've learned before. Random number generator. What does it land on? That's not in the field. Is this next number in the field? No. That's also not in the field. We're running out of time. 92. Who's that? I think that's Chris Lanini. He's my pick to get to victory lane all the way back from 24th. It's not wrong, potentially. We're ready to go racing once again. Green flag in the air. Field thunders out of turn number 2. Still Mark Cohn leads after getting a healthy jump. It does leave Sean Campbell vulnerable. 3 wide for second, and Zaldo gets boxed out. Krause up the inside to second.
What a strong restart there from Phil Krause. George Anzaldo gets a little bit boxed out, and Campbell is shuffled to the outside now. So that's going to be a real... that was not what Campbell was hoping for, as he's even following back all the way to the likes of Tyler Graff and Chris Fowler here. He just cannot find some clean air to really get into the rhythm here, and he's going all the way back to 8th now.
He looks just slow right now. We'll have to wait and see if there's anything wrong with his car. Remember, just track that number 26 on the left side of your screen. Still Cohn's going to lead, though, as we wind to the end of yet another lap. Campbell, I think, is finally back up to speed, but in 9th position and with lots of work to do. Even with 36 laps to go, even with a race as racy like this, that's asking for a lot.
Yes, it is, but I think Campbell is definitely one driver who can make that happen. But the trick is that just to make sure that his car is actually fine here. But what can happen on the restarts, Arjuna, is if you miss a shift, or if you get out of line like Campbell did, it takes almost a lap and a half for the cars to really get fully wound up. So if you delay that, it almost has a knock-on effect for several laps, and I think that's what happened to Campbell. I don't see any damage on his car.
You can see how racy it's getting, though, up and down through the field. And new race leader Phil Krause slides his way down in front of Mark Cohn. Will lead at the end of lap 79. Boy, have we got a blockbuster of a finish lined up for you here on RaceSpotTV, but do not go anywhere. The run to the checkered flag in the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175 presented by Butt Kicker is coming up next. Welcome back to RaceSpotTV and to the land of the rising sun. We're back once again at the Mobility Resort Motegi. We're fighting for the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175 presented by Butt Kicker. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to have your company here for round 6 of the Lionheart Retro Series alongside myself, Andrew Kinsella. Don't forget you can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to RaceSpot.tv/timing. Especially important because, Andrew, as we head into the final 30 laps, breakaways starting to build, fights at the front. Everywhere you look, there's something going on.
The elbows are coming out both in this leading pack and back in the second pack as well. Desperation is starting to set in for these drivers. Phil Krause and Mark Cohn had a little bit of contact, and back in the pack, Campbell, Stouffer, O'Brien, they've been having a fierce battle back here as well. You can see Wood and Nunez got together a little bit ago, and they're just slicing and dicing all over the track. 28 to go. These drivers know it's now or never.
Oh, almost to the wall there. That's not what you want to be seeing. How aggressive drivers are willing to be. I think that was Luke Daniels, Christopher Hill for 9th and 10th position, where absolutely no quarter is being given. Sean Campbell has gone from restarting up at the front to being just inside of the top 15. Mark Cohen had been so content to try and fight at the lead and down low.
Fowler.
I was about to get talking about how the low line wasn't working for Cohen. Chris Fowler finds the high line a little bit too loose for him.
And there's another driver up in the wall coming out of four, going slowly down the front straightaway. I think that was Luis Gonzalez Nunez.
Oh, no, actually.
Or no, it was Wood.
Given the slow speed of Andrew Wood, definitely Andrew Wood. But no caution, at least for the time being, as they thunder down in towards turn 3 for this second battle of cars. Mark Cohn finds the front once again, though. And the later we get into the race, the more important these switches at the front will become. David Sirra almost gets blocked to the wall.
And you can see just how aggressive these drivers need to be at this point. Look at how close Phil Krause is holding Mark Cohn down to the inside lane. He's going to try and use the momentum of the outside lane. There's the contact from Chris Fowler, and then you can see Andrew Wood hit it a lot harder than Fowler did.
So easy to do, and I'm sure it won't be the last time that we see that over the course of these next 24 laps. Still Cohn will lead at the line. It's Andrew Wood who will finally head off towards pit lane. Luke Daniels now leads that second pack, albeit 2 full seconds behind, unless we get a third caution on the day. Andrew, I don't feel like these drivers will catch up anytime soon.
But you got to say, Arjuna, I think a third caution isn't necessarily a bad bet at this point.
You just had to say it, didn't you? I'm being the optimistic one.
I'm just observing what's going on this track. That's all I'm saying.
You're probably not wrong, is the uncomfortable truth. It's still Cohn and Krause that will fight at the front. Cohn will be peeled off to that white line for the time being. At what point will he start to turn his attention a little bit further back? And speaking of further back, we've got the likes of Campbell now on the upper line with Luis Gonzalez Nunez. They're a couple of rows deep.
Oh.
Big spin. That's going to be Luke Daniels into the wall, collected by a couple of cars. Caution flies once again. And oh boy, well, there you go, Andrew.
I did tell you that a caution was coming there, Arjuna, and that was a strange one from Luke Daniels. It looked like he just lost it right on the entrance to the corner there. I don't see any damage, so no, there's no contact. I think he just pitched the car in a little bit too hard, and very similar to what we saw with Wood, he had a lot of fresh air on his front wing, and the car just hooked up a little bit too much, and around he went.
See if we can jump on board with him for a moment. I'm also trying to figure out who is in a couple of machines that did end up tagging. Oh, he got very, very loose there, didn't he? So who comes on through to tag him? There's a yellow and that might have been Rodrigo Munoz in the Backfire Motorsports car. One of those that got involved. Couldn't pick out who the other ones were, but only halfway through a fuel window. Again, we didn't expect anyone to head off towards pit lane. Might see someone further back decide that they want to try and gamble on tires at this point, although that doesn't necessarily seem like it's the wisest call. It does probably mean, though, Andrew, we've got no concerns about fuel anymore.
Yeah, this will put to bed any fuel concerns. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about, because I wasn't sure, and maybe Sean will enter into the YouTube chat once again, but I'm wondering if the reason that he dropped back was he might have been slightly under-fueled through the auto-fuel feature on iRacing. And that's why he dropped back so far, to just try and get a little bit of extra fuel here. If that's the case, this is a huge blessing. This caution is a huge blessing for Sean Campbell.
They'll have, what, come the restart, at least 19, maybe 18 to go. So the fact that that second pack has been brought back into contention, they'll have a big smile on their face. You know who won't? Anyone who was in that leading pack. Mark Cohn, Phil Kraus, George Anzardo still 1, 2, and 3. As Andrew, that's Andrew Wood, isn't it? Back out on track, smoking.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to test out whether his car was handling properly or not, whether he would be able to continue safely and using the caution to do so. So it looks like he's staying out at this point.
And your questions have been answered by Sean Campbell. He took tires, which apparently is a choice that he is now regretting. Or regretted at least then. Because he says his wear wouldn't have made it to the end. Not the first time we've seen that this season. Is anyone else going to be a little bit concerned about getting their tires down to 0?
That's a really interesting point, especially we just saw Luke Daniels spin on his own in turn 3. So that could indicate that his tires let go, and he maybe should have taken some tires on the last pit stop and didn't.
It has been interesting how tires have become, at least at one pit stop, a requirement over the course of these races. As we head off to some of the more abrasive surfaces. I know everyone talks about Japanese concrete, whatnot, but in terms of load on the car, there are other tracks that put not inconsiderable loads. Going to be curious to see how that's all going to play out. Still lights on the pace car are on, so we'll go back to racing with 18 to go. Point of no return to make it an unfortunate mark of 3 races finishing under caution in a row here at Motegi. I believe, Andrew, would be getting within 4 laps left to run.
Yes, that is correct. We do not have a red flag feature in iRacing, which will not allow us to have a 1-lap shootout if we get past 4 laps to go.
Oh, good.
I had to bring that up.
I mean, it was interesting.
It was an interesting way to end an Indy 500, yes. Which side of the debate are you on?
I'm of the opinion that this wasn't as ridiculous as what happened at the end of a Formula One season a couple of years ago, but it was pretty ludicrous.
So here's the thing. Would it have been any less ludicrous to have gone green for about 50 yards and seen Marcus Ericsson pass Joseph Newgarden on the previous caution? The only justification in my mind for what we saw happen was they wanted to avoid 2002. That is fair.
If there was that much confusion about who was actually leading and they didn't think they could get it sorted by the end of the check, by the time the cars across the line, then yes, they 100% should have red flagged it. In any other case, the race should have finished under yellow. We had 1 red flag, we tried, that's it. Anyway, we don't have that functionality, whatever you want to call it. It means that to win this Majors Garage Twin Ring 175, you're going to have to do it on track. An estimated 10 or so minutes left to run in this race, and boys, are going to be a nervous one for the drivers. Cohn yet again with a great jump at the front of the field. It will leave Kraus under pressure from the likes of Anzaldo, Razmas behind. In through turn 1, they'll build up their momentum. Next time by at the line, let's see who'll be leading. Couple of cars jinking down below the white line for a second there. Opportunity presented for Razmas to try and get to the inside of Enzaldo, but it's Kraus around the outside that will sweep to the race lead. One lap back under green. Let's see how long we'll get before they're fighting 3 wide again.
See the snake happening right now. Phil Kraus has control, but you can tell that Cone understands. Oh, big wreck.
I think you can blame that one on me, and poor Jim Herrick in that number 40 4D sim racing machine unfortunately finds himself turfed out and into the wall. Suddenly, just like that, cautions breed cautions. They were 3 wide for a moment, and I believe it would have been maybe Christopher Hill getting mixed up there. Michael O'Brien might have been that other car down low. But unfortunately, coming out worse for wear, it was the 4D sim racing car. Join on board with his teammate, and you could just see 3 wide running out of room, even though there's so many lines to run.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate for Jim Herrick, who had such a good run going from 22nd on the grid all the way up to 8th position before that incident there. And it's just one of those things that happen at Motegi, where you have such wide straightaways and everybody fans out, but then there's the fastest way through the corner, and that's on the bottom lane. And I think it was just a case of Herrick expected Hill to go down a little bit further than he did, and 2 cars into 1, and unfortunately Herrick is the one on the wrecker from it.
So we're at 4 cautions so far today, matches the 4 that we had 12 months ago. Oh, no, not 12 months ago, last year, this race, a lot earlier in the schedule than it was in 2022. But still on track for what should probably be a relatively clean race here for Barney the Flagman. Really getting a workout, that's for sure. He's no Aaron Likens. He's no Adam Driver, who definitely gave a good effort, a good account of himself this past weekend, as apparently did Tom Holland, who was so vigorous in his flag waving at Monaco that I heard he hit himself. So credit.
I mean, that is one way. You would think that you would want to avoid hitting yourself with the stick that you're holding, but
I mean, it's better than what Tim Cook did back at Circuit of the Americas that one time.
That is fair, yes.
So, yes, at least there's that. I guess we can go back to the discussion that we were having before. Yes, we tried one red flag, but when there's nothing in the rule book for a certain American Open Wheel Rules series that says that what they did was wrong, which I think is fine. I mean, sporting-wise, they're not in such a weird bind as they were at the end of Formula 1 a couple of years ago. However, at the end of the day, no matter who had been scored at the lead at the end of after that half a lap, I would not have felt wrong about that person winning. I felt a little bit more uncomfortable about how the race did end up finishing, as happy as I was about the result.
For me, it was the second red, the way the second red flag stopped, where you went green and some back markers on the front straightaway wreck, and like the way that they scored that, like, I don't know, to me, I like the idea of not being able to pass before the start finish line.
Agree.
First of all, which Ericsson did, and fine, that's in the rule book that he can do that. But if there was any rule that I would change, it would be that one. And that would have prevented me being so up in arms about what happened after that.
Here's a bold take. Those drivers need to get better at restarting. Better at starting, sorry. Last couple of years have not been great. Was it Texas a couple of years ago?
Texas was one, yeah.
Gateway?
Yeah.
I mean, we could go on and on at this point. They're just not very good at it.
Well, the problem is that the restart on the ovals with this aero package that this certain open wheel series in America has, it's so hard to pass that you need to take every advantage of the restart that you can, yes. And it just leads to stupid decisions from the drivers.
Yeah, we could really go off on a tangent here. We will restart with 12 to go, and it will be with Phil Kraus at the point of the field, and he'll have the opportunity to make a bit of a jump in towards turn number 1, at least on this restart. 12 to go means if we get another caution within the next couple of laps, let's say we restart with 8 or so to go, we're running out of potential green flag laps the more cautions we build up. However, we do still, of the 33 cars that saw the green flag, have 26 left there running on the lead lap. It's been relatively clean, all things considered.
Yes, it has. These drivers have done a tremendous job with how close they've been running all day. That it's been as clean as it has been. We've had a couple of incidents, but really we've avoided the really big wrecks, and it's a credit to how the drivers have handled this situation, because there quite easily could have been 3 or 4 more cautions if a couple of things had happened a little bit differently.
You get one more chance to change your prediction here, by the way.
I do not change predictions.
What was your prediction? Just to remind
Phil
myself.
Kraus.
It was Phil Kraus, okay.
He was in 4th at the time, driving car number 4. He's now leading.
My random number generator did say Chris Lanini, who is still back in 23rd, so he's got some work to do. 12 laps will be left to go, with 4 cautions in the books. Plenty of drivers still in contention, but Phil Kraus trying to re-enter HyperX victory lane for the 3rd time this season. He stacks up the field, will hold them waiting so long that they go 3 wide behind. Chris Fowler's going to take advantage, roar up inside of the top 5, racing once again in towards turn number 1. It's a good start from Fowler, but now having to try and find a way down low once again. He'll drop to 7th momentarily. Kraus holds the lead. Cone trying to keep him down low. Into turn 1, the challenge will come. Kraus still holds strong at the point.
Look at the number 3 the number 1 car, 3rd in line. Mike Rasmussen, your series champion. This is the first time that he's been in this top 3 mix so far today. I wonder if he has something for these leading 2 here.
Where would you position your car right now, Andrew, if you were trying to find your way on forward? High or low? Which is faster in your mind?
I think that you need to be able to find the momentum, which means going high on the straightaways and sweeping down into the corners. It's a dangerous tactic. It can lead to contact, but that's the way that you get forward, particularly if you're a little bit farther back in line around that David Sirwa, Chris Fowler area. Momentum is going to be so important over these last 10 laps.
So many drivers with time winding down on them. Tyler Graf has been able to work his way back forward up inside of the top 5. Mark Cohn finally, though, has just that little bit more of an overlap, a little bit more brave in how much he pinches Phil Kraus. It's not going to be enough to hold the race lead, and Zaldo almost slides into the wall. Here comes Graf, though, trying to work his way on forward once again. He's left Chris Fowler a little bit out to dry on the outside line, but in that Nezumi graphic LC number 98, right up the back of the defending champion.
And it's just a little bit of a waiting game here for Graf. He's got to find a way to make the outside work just a little bit better for him, find a way to open up some air here. You can see the momentum that Anzaldo and Fowler can get from that outside lane coming around turns 3 and 4. It's just so powerful, that run that you can get if you time it right. So it's sort of this weird place where through turns 1 and 2 you really want to be on the bottom, but I think you really kind of want to be on that middle lane through 3 and 4.
And as we get later into the quote-unquote run, where do your tires leave yourself? How much have you left yourself in reserve? On board with Chris Fowler as you see just how much Cone continues to pinch Phil Kraus at the front, but now with 7 laps left to go, time is winding down. Fowler's back up into the top 5 and looking feisty, looking aggressive, juking his way up and down through the track are plenty of the drivers. 3 wide behind, 2 wide for the lead.
I think Anzaldo actually hit the inside wall down the front straightaway there. He is dropping like a stone through the field, and that's opened up the lane for Chris Fowler. He's going 3 wide into 3.
My days, we 100% saw 5 wide for almost 10th position. Phil Kraus still strong at the point, but Chris Fowler's found his way
big
to
wreck.
third, and while the yellow flag flies, it flies with 6 to go. A 2 or 3 lap shootout still remains, but the day ends for Craig Forsyth.
Yeah, what an unfortunate end for Forsyth. He had been in and around that top 10, top 15 area, and was looking really racy there, but he got into the outside wall big coming out of turn 4 there.
And he was part of that almost 5 wide moment. We'll take a look at that in just a sec, but you can see, winds up, hits Sean Campbell, I'm pretty sure, in the WMP Racing car. Gets rather fortunate to not get collected after that as well. But just watch this full lap cycle as they work their way through turns 1 and 2. I said I was nervous at the start. I feel like it is not unlikely that we'll finish under caution for a 3rd year in a row.
Yeah, with 2 laps to go, it's very likely that whoever is leading at the line for 1 to go will be the winner of the race, simply because we will be back under caution here. But yeah, you can just see Forsyth, the car just simply would not turn with all the dirty air in front of him, and it just rode up into the wall, and he was fortunate not to collect very many other drivers in that.
So we'll have, like I say, I think 2 or 3 to go. Might actually be 3, which is what I was really hoping for, because the caution flew just as we were crossing the line to make it 6 left on the board. So 5th caution of the day. So it means we match what we saw 2 years ago in that infamous race where just 7 cars finished on the lead lap. Still 25 left on the leading lap here today. We've had not insignificant incidents, but fortunately they haven't taken out many in numbers.
No, they haven't. But Arjuna, would I be able to get a little bit of a rundown with the teams once again?
Oh, yes.
Because I'm noticing something at the front of this field that Phil Kress might not necessarily like.
That's uncomfortable when you see just how many Nezumi machines are stacked up and ready to go.
Yeah, Phil Kress is on a little bit of an island in that first position there, but he has done a great job on these last few restarts holding it. It's going to be a tall order with 5 Nezumi esports cars in the next 6 positions.
So how does it fare out in terms of teams, if you're wondering? Fowler, O'Brien, and then Taylor are part of Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks. Cone, as well as Drew White, and then Joe Hassett are part of Nezumi Graphics LC Special. And so I think that leaves Razmas, Graf, and one more driver whose name I forget off the top of my head, who are partnered up in the team that is placed up in 2nd in the team championship. We've got Christopher Hill in the mix. 40 Raceware have lost Jim Herrick as well, of course, don't forget, but Raven Lavoie still have Sirois and Anzaldo that might be able to work together. Now, lights are still on the pace car, which means I think this will be a 2-lap restart, unfortunately.
Yeah, I believe you're right. It should be a 2-lap restart here. So two laps for Phil Kress to hold off the Nezumi Tide.
I'm not liking that, that's for sure. We deserved, I think, a good finish here. I think we may still be given one. And it won't be a 1-lap shootout, so we won't complain about that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, is this going to be the finish that we deserved on Sunday if IndyCar had thrown the red flag when they should have?
Oh, good point. Because if we had thrown it 1 lap earlier, it may have been a little bit better, wouldn't it?
Exactly. We could have done a 2-lap shootout then.
There was some confusion, I can say, even in the stands, where I was turning around going, what is going on? There we go. Lights are off on the pace car. Look at the left side of the screen. Razmas plus 23, but what once saw plenty of double-digit gainers is now copiously missing as many of those movers. 23 still looking good.
To be fair, the only reason that Fowler and Graf's numbers are as low as they are is because they started at the front, then decided to go all the way to the back, and now have come all the way back to the front.
I think what we really clearly need is a graphic that says how many positions have been gained. Although, if we were going to do hard charger, the way that you would actually do that is positions lost plus positions gained equals hard charger, which means that even if you have worked your way through the field, if you drop to yourself back, you don't actually gain as many positions. You see what I mean here?
Yes.
I'm explaining it terribly, but that's also because I didn't agree when I first learned that that's what hard charger meant. I thought hard charger just meant being able to go forward.
I agree, personally.
Right. 2 to go. Ready to go. Phil Kraus still leads, but I'm sure Nezumi Graphics LC are plotting something special. Pace car off and away. If we see it again, it will be to end the race. It's a long hold once again, and Kraus gets them to stack up. Across the line, Cohn's going to be in with a chance of trying to find his way to the outside, but now the teammates have got to figure out when are they going to give up the ghost, and when is it not going to matter, because caution's back out, and Phil Kraus wins the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175, presented by Butt Kicker.
What did I say? I didn't think that we would be able to get around to 1 to go, and it didn't happen. And Phil Kraus, my pick, I will say, Arjuna, my prediction is going to win this race.
You know what you did not predict is the fact that our defending race winner was going to end this race needing to go on to the flatbed, but I think is going to try and bring himself across the line to the finish. Let's quickly try and dial up a replay here if we can. We're going to cycle through, I think, the entirety of the sequence out of the final corner to the line. Campbell was mixed up inside of the top 15, but you can see the check-up in front. Campbell fortunately avoided it initially. Keeps out of the wall. It's a slow restarting Georgian Zaldo, I do believe, who fades up the track and gives a bit of a shove to poor Sean Campbell.
Yeah, unfortunately, not much that Sean Campbell could have done there to prevent that. It's just one of those things that when you get the checkup, and then suddenly Zaldo found himself with a face full of dirty air, caught the car, but as he was catching it, Campbell was just to his outside and nothing you could do.
And once again, solo car incident.
Yeah.
We've got quite lucky with some of those. We come across the line, though, to see Phil Kraus, back-to-back race winner in the Lionheart Retro Series. Third time this season, he crosses the line to take the Majors Garage Twin Ring 175, presented by Butt Kicker. Yes, a third year that we finish under caution. It's just one of those tracks where, like you said, Andrew, unless you're leading in the final couple of laps, you're always nervous that you're running out of time.
Absolutely, and Kraus did exactly what he needed to do on that restart. It was some really brilliant strategy to get everyone so compacted there, because it forced the cars behind him to fight with themselves just a little bit. It gave Kraus just enough to be able to stay in front, and I think that regardless of that spin, I think he would have come out on top anyways, but he did a great job, great strategy all race long from the number 4 driver.
He did a fantastic job in the midst of the team pressure as well to time that restart. And so Phil Kraus burns it down, a place he's becoming increasingly familiar with here in this Lionheart Retro Series. 6 races, 3 wins for Phil Kraus in that Team Talent Private Label Team Hype number 4 machine. Let's run you down through your race results, because boy, what 113 laps that we had on the board, and your arena race results show that yes, Phil Kraus crossed the line to grab the victory, but it's going to be Nezumi Graphics LC. Boy, I've said that too many times today and struggling to get it through my words. Mark Cohn second's going to be delighted with the debut of that Mustard Madness machine, and then Chris Fowler, not cursed, climbs his way back up to 3rd. Telegraph, Mike Razmas, complete your top 5. Mike Razmas again, plus 23 positions after not setting a time on the board in qualifying. Christopher Hill, the second best of the rookies, back in 6th with David Sirois. Pole position back to 7th, unfortunately for him, with Michael O'Brien, Samuel Fontaine, and then Chris Stouffer rounding out your top 10 finishing positions. Behind them, Drew White, Jordan Zaldo, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and then Joe Hassett. Amongst those that were in the midst of where Sean Campbell unfortunately came unstuck, Mike Rigney, Ricky Hardin, Hugo Gallis, Jeff Hysong, Chris Lanini, and then Matt Wagner round out your top 20. Behind them, still left on the lead lap, the likes of Rodrigo Munoz, Chris Reagan, And then Sam Ryman, who dropped back initially, but cautions helped him out to a top 23 finish. Cristobal Valenzuela, and then Sean Campbell, the final car scored on your leading lap. Andrew Wood was able to head back out onto track ultimately to recover a 26th place finish in front of the likes of Craig Forsyth, Jim Herrick, and Luke Daniels, all for 4D Racewear SRT. Matt Taylor unfortunately heads back to the garage early. He finishes this race down in 30th after joining late in the day. But Paul Jenkins, Alex Guna, and then Marius Valiokas all scored behind, completing your top 33. Jeff Hysong, fastest lap of the race on lap 103. And so with that, we get ready to head into our next level racing post-race show after an interesting race at Mobility Resort Motegi. It's once again a familiar face that stands by in HyperX Victory Lane as we join Phil Kraus back-to-back victories. Phil didn't get to finish that one under green, but what was going through your mind as we headed to that final restart late in the day?
Honestly, I'm kind of thankful he didn't get to hit under green, if I'm completely honest, Arjuna. I know that spoils it for everyone watching, but yeah, those restarts are pretty dangerous as the lead car, because the car behind you is just able to build such a run. Especially, I think it was 2 restarts prior, I built a huge run on Mark, and there was nothing he could do to really defend from that, and I thought, like, on one of those last restarts, he was going to be able to do the same thing to me. Like, I was going on green, going as late as possible, and pretty much anything to make sure he couldn't build a run.
So back-to-back victories, now 3 victories this season, but Sean Campbell finally has a bad race. That's really the thing that's going to be bringing you back into contention for the championship. What do you think you're going to be needing heading off to the Brickyard next to come out on top back as we go to a road course?
Probably make sure I don't continue the win it or bin it trend I've built so far this season, because I think I've had 3 race finishes and all 3 of them have been wins and the rest have all been retirements. So honestly, I'm just hoping to stack some finishes together. I'm not even thinking about points really at all right now.
Off to the Brickyard, but not just for the Grand Prix, of course. We'll have the second of our Triple Crowns up next. Given the wild racing that we've been seeing with this tire model, what do you think we're in for in that second Triple Crown at Speedway Indiana?
A very stressful race compared to how the IndyCar drives. I think you're going to see a lot of side-by-side racing, which you usually don't see as much of in that car. But nobody's really going to be able to run away outside of pit cycles, I would imagine. It's going to be probably a pretty big fuel race, if I were to guess, because stretching it that extra lap in this car seems to matter a ton. But yeah, it should be fun. It'll be completely different than anything I've driven at Indy, for sure.
It should be a good one. I think we have an average finish there of something like 1.5 tenths of a second. Congratulations, Phil. 3rd victory this year.
Yep, cheers, Arjuna.
Always good to chat to Phil Kraus, and making a strong debut for, if I'm getting it right, the Mustard Menace machine. Mark Cohn 2nd at the end of the day after leading so much. Mark, fairly good day overall for the team.
Man, that was wild. Motegi has always been crazy, and I could have either been up front or been in the pack, and I just chose to let it eat. We had 30 seconds of optional damage at one point, but we were trying everything. Phil just got it at the end, so congrats to him.
30 seconds, not insignificant. We did see some aggressive fighting at the start, Mark, in the first couple of stints, I should say, where you wanted to lead. Were you ever thinking that maybe it would be better to drop back and save a bit of fuel, try and get a bit of an overcut? Or did you expect some of those cautions heading into our green flag pit cycles?
We've never had a caution-free race at Motegi, so I figured just be out front. If we get pit stops, we get pit stops. And if we get cautions, we get cautions, and we got cautions. So that paid off.
That it did indeed. Of course, Brickyard up on the docket next. Came 6th in the first Triple Crown. How confident are you feeling heading over to Speedway Indiana?
Well, I'm forever grateful that I just got one of them. Anyone beyond that is a bonus. So we're going to give it everything in this beautiful Nezumi machine. I'm not sure if we're driving the yellow one or if it'll be the Pink Panther again, but again, we're going to give it everything here.
Sounds good. That, the 3rd closest finish you're referring to in series history, 0.005 of a second. We'll see how close it is in Indianapolis in a couple of weeks' time. Congratulations on 2nd, Mark. We'll see you for the Grand Prix, hopefully, in a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you, guys. And
over to the final step of the podium where Chris Fowler rounds What was a up and down day, quite literally. Good in qualifying, dropped to the back, and then roared your way back to the front. Chris, what was going on in the decision from, it seemed like most of the Nezumi Graphics LC guys, to drop to the back and try and ride in the early stages?
Yeah, well, first I got to thank DonateLife.net, Assistant Barbosa Foundation, and Nezumi for all being on board this year. It's really awesome to have those on the car and have them on the podium. We wanted to see how the playout was going to play out in the front of the field. It was going to get kind of crazy and racy. We've seen these races play out before, 3, 4, 5 wide up front early in the race. It just wasn't worth it. I've been crashed out of several of these up front early. So I raced for a little bit and then decided to draft back with teammates and just ride, save some fuel, and see how it goes. I don't know how we made it to lap 40 without our caution, but it was a good race.
Did you ever get worried that you were going to run out of time at the end to get those final couple of spots forward with the relentless number of cautions that we started to see?
Yeah, I knew they were going to come in, so I knew I had to get a little bit aggressive. My wheel, I brushed the wall out of 4. I kind of got shoved out to the wall there and got a wheel alignment, so I wasn't sure what my car was going to do. So, but you just had to be aggressive in there, because I knew the cautions were going to come. So we just knew it. Just had to get as many positions as you can. I knew I could ride that high side pretty good, dive in deep, and get a good run off and try to get some guys. And that I was lucky to get up to 3rd.
It's been a good start to the season for Nezumi Graphics LC Madworks, starting to run away in the Team Championship. What's been the key to the success across of 3 different Lotus 79s?
Oh, it's just massive teamwork. We have a really great team chemistry, and not to mention Michael and Matt are ridiculously fast. So they're holding their end of the bargain at this point. They're carrying all the weight for me. I still had some team issues at Homestead, some team issues at Pocono, and made a lot of mistakes with some injuries at Long Beach. So just happy to get a good finish today for the team and show I can actually help the team out there, the team standings, and hopefully keep this momentum going.
Hey, you got up to the podium today. Let's see how things go when we head over to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at the end of the month. We'll see you for the doubleheader in a couple of weeks' time.
Sounds good, thanks.
Always good to get a chat with our podium runners to close out our reflections on a trip over to Motegi and ultimately an intriguing trip to Motegi. Yes, 6 cautions ended up stopping and starting our run to the very end, but it does mean that with now a road course on deck for the next time that we see these Lotus 79s, and our first trip over, Andrew, with these cars to a brand new scan, a brand new layout at the very end of this lap in particular.
Yeah, and this is going to be a very interesting day at the Indy Road Course. I think that there's going to be a couple of maybe bruised egos and some hurt feelings stemming from Motegi. And Indy Road is one of those tracks that you can get really physical on. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens on June 22nd, because I think that we're going to see some fireworks there on the road course there.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how the tires play out as well, because it's been a point of contention to see how different drivers have played out that strategy. Of course, first half of the season brings itself to a close as well. We're not coming back to Motegi for its Grand Prix round, but we're going over to Fuji in the 3rd week of July, of course, then just a week later heading over to Iowa before Phoenix, 2 back-to-back short tracks. Round out the first half of a 22-race season, Andrew.
And what a schedule we have, and even looking even further ahead, Most Sport and Barber in August. That's going to be one heck of a month along with Phoenix. So all summer long, stay tuned to the Lionheart Retro Series, because the action is going to come fast and furious.
It's a really interesting schedule in so many ways, and remember, we head off into 2024 this year as well. The racing will be all live here on RaceSpotTV. As we wind things to a close, though, let's thank all of those that make this possible, starting with HyperX. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt-kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Visit thebuttkicker.com to learn more. If you think sim racing is thrilling, try getting behind the wheel of a real race car. The BMW M4 GT4 experience at the BMW Performance Driving School in Thermal, California puts you in the cockpit of one of BMW's fastest cars, complete with roll cage and racing slicks. You'll get fitted with a racing suit, practice pit stops, and lap their track with pro instructors. Nothing virtual about their thrills. To book your BMW M4 GT4 experience, call or visit the links on screen. Gourmet Sim Industries are makers of high-end esports equipment and controls. Precision built using nothing but the best materials available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. Arena is an all-new esports streaming experience driven by real-time fan interactions between gamers and their communities. Arena brings live broadcast fan engagement to the next level. Get involved and make a difference on arena.tv. And graphics, from simple logos to full branding for your company. Virtual Designs Deliveries Race by Indy 500 champions. Graphics offers the finest quality with a wide range of design services. Visit graphicsesports.com. And it's not just them, but so many more that make this all possible. To learn more about the Lionheart Racing Series, the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts forward, or about its partners, head to LionheartRacingSeries.com. Don't forget, social media is your home for all things Lionheart. Stay up to date with all the news from the virtual paddock. Next time we go racing, we'll be live from Speedway, Indiana. First up is the Gomez Sim Industries Indy Grand Prix presented by Next Level Racing, and then 7 days later, the second of the Triple Crowns, the Indy 250, the butt kicker, Indy 250. It's going to be a fun ride, and you can catch all the action here live on RaceSpotTV. For Andrew Kinsella, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time as we make our way over to the Brickyard to make more Lionheart history.